Hello every... It says your event is starting. It says, hello everybody. Hope you're doing marvellously well. 10:32, made it by 2 minutes. I was on a Skype call with Michael. Do you know Michael over at In The Mix? So Michael, if you're watching, hello. If you haven't checked out his channel, check it out. It's absolutely phenomenal. He he's super cool. He's Scottish, which makes him smart. And he's just a really, really great guy. Him and Brad have an amazing channel. They also make amazing music. So we want to do some stuff together because, of course, well, you know, I don't know if you've been watching his channel. If you do watch it, he recently got a Paul Reed Smith. So he started playing guitar as well. So I love that, you know, guys that work in ambient and dance music genres bringing in guitars, and then guys like us, guitar players, bringing in dance and ambient music. Although I've obviously been doing that for years as well. What Revstar model is this? This is, I think this is their flagship one. It's the RSP20CR. It's the most expensive one, as far as I can tell. Hello there in Scotland. Whereabouts in Scotland are you? I missed it. Where is it? Scroll back, scroll back, scroll back. My hair is not marvellous, but thank you. Let your wife cut your hair. I'm trying to find out where you were in Scotland. Aberdeen. Hello in Aberdeen. Hey, Jethro. Yes, you're watching us live. So I've got the guitar in. Oh, Eric, you've been playing this? This, it's got the...
Yes, that's all.
It's got that kind of... Anyway, so let's talk guitar. Nice sustain. Yes, it's a lovely guitar. And yeah, it's got its glued neck. You know, as one of my very good friends and a very well-known guitar player said, he said it's like, what did he say? I'm trying to phrase it exactly. He said it's like the best playing Les Paul he's ever played. The best playing Les Paul he's ever played. I thought that was a great line for a Yamaha. And this is their most expensive one. It's not their most affordable one. I think it's like retails at $1,600. So it's their most expensive guitar. However, not their most expensive guitar, but the most expensive Revstar. However, the equivalent Les Paul would probably be $3,000 or $4,000. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not a, you know, I've got nothing against Les Pauls. I think I've got 3 down here on the rack down there. I've got 1 in a case over there that Ace gave me. You know, I've got lots of beautiful Gibsons. We love them dearly. They make amazing guitars. However, can you compare that Yamaha with a Les Paul? Sure. I feel like I definitely am. Oh, Anita, you're far too kind. And definitely do not be demoralized. You know, I've been playing guitar since I was 15. So I love doing that guitar production video. Michael from In The Mix was very generous when he said that he watched it because he enjoyed understanding about different voicings and stuff. There he is. We've been talking about you, Michael. Your ear's burning. So, so we're going to do some stuff together, but go and check out his channel, especially for those of us like, now don't get me wrong, I want to qualify this because I came from good old Angleterre. I'm English and British, obviously, by default, and so I came from Britain, and when I was in the early 90s and late 80s, I was doing dance music. I had ADATs in the mid-90s, mid-early 90s, probably about 93, ADATs synced together. I had sequencers, and I was doing dance music, so I've always done that with guitars. I mean, we used to do things like, and it's a great technique, we used to have an Alesis micro gate, and we would take a guitar and do like... So take just good old big fat chords like that, and then have the micro gate triggered from the hi-hat. So you'd get... So we used to do all kinds of fun things, but in those days it was mainly analog. You know, what I mean is like to do things like gating, etc., and flanging and all the different phasing, all the different effects that we were doing and stuff, was we had to have analog hardware. And, you know, to be honest, that was a lot of frickin' money. It was a lot of money. The only people I believe in those days that were making equipment that was, you know, quote unquote affordable was Alesis. Yamaha made some good stuff, but Alesis made great stuff. And I still actually have a quadriverb sitting over there. And there's a reverb on that called King's Chamber, which I believe is one of the best sounding reverbs ever. I love it. Also over here, oh, where are they? Are they in for repair? We also have a couple of microverbs as well. Where are they? Where do they go, Eric?
Are they hiding behind the chair?
Are they hiding behind the chair? Nope. I know that we had to get some repair work done with them. Anyway, so I've always been a champion of those kind of things, those kind of that kind of affordability. But obviously, you know, in those days, it wasn't even affordable. I mean, I had two ADATs, so I could have 16 channels, and I would have to print all of my synths and all of my guitars and all my drum machines onto those ADATs. And ADATs, I don't know what they were. I can't remember. £600–700. They weren't cheap. So you got a pair of those, and I had a Soundtrax Topaz console. Remember the Topaz? For those of you out there, it was grey, and it had like semi-parametric EQs, and it was a great console. And I think it was a 24-channel, but I could double the inputs and have synths coming back in there. So I had that with my ADATs synced together. I had like Rolands. I had the JV stuff when that came out in the mid-90s, late 80s. I had all these different things. I had a Korg M1, which is a fantastic synthesizer for the money. You know, I had all these different things all going at once from a sequencer, and it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work to keep it all going, but when I think about it, I probably had several $1,000s worth of equipment that I acquired. Now, if you're starting off now, you can literally, with whatever computer you have, whether you have a laptop or a tower, you can buy, I mean, how much is FL Studio? It's like $200, isn't that right, Michael? You could start with something like that, and there's so much stuff built in, you know, and really you're just going to need a microphone and a keyboard controller, and you've already got almost everything that I had. You know, my system came together. I remember when I first moved to Los Angeles, I got a publishing deal, and the publishing deal was pretty small. It was like $10,000, and I had like, I used most of that to buy equipment, and that $10,000 worth of equipment is probably equivalent to about $500 worth of DAW. I mean, that's $180. Thank you. So yeah, it's a whole different world, you know, because everything had to be bought as hardware. Everything. It's incredible. All right, so let's talk guitar production stuff. So what we got into in that video, and it was interesting because a lot of people said, well, it was overproduced. Well, that was kind of the point, was to show all of the different kinds of ideas, because that chord sequence obviously was like that. So that was the chord sequence, just a B minor, D, A, and E. So that was the dumb chords, and I had a pair of those, and as you can see, it's kind of a grungy rhythm. You're like a... an out-tuned guitar. Well, I've got to be careful. If I play a guitar riff that happens to sound like something, I'll get a copyright strike. The other day we were listening to something on headphones, and we got an ad put on the front of it because of headphone bleed. Yep, from the headphone bleed. And I've known people do interviews outside at a cafe, and music was playing in the cafe, and they also got a copyright strike. Yeah. Anyway, so there's the basic chord sequence. It's just B minor, D, A, and E. Really, really straightforward chord sequence. So a lot of people were saying, like I said, oh, it's overproduced. Well, I was trying to describe all of the different ways of doing things. If I did a video with only one guitar idea, people would say it wasn't overproduced. But of course, they would also say you didn't teach us anything. So with that B minor, D, A, E at the end there, my first idea I was describing was to take the top two notes of the chords, you know, so you can do that. Which could be the sole thing. You could have a bass like going boom, da 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 ba dum ba da da dum, and the guitar line could just be. You could just do that. Of course, you could also do arpeggios, you know. You could do... What I always like to do is I always think of organ players. If you've ever worked with a really amazing Hammond organ player, they're all about drawbars and hardly moving their hands. It's almost kind of a logistic thing, isn't it? Because if you're moving a lot of drawbars with one hand, you've only got the other hand to play the chords. So think about it when you're playing guitar. Either you're playing guitar or you're talking to the guitar player in your band. Think about really tight voicings. It's really good on acoustics, for instance. Let me grab an acoustic guitar. It's interesting, somebody said to me, isn't this arrangement? No, this is production. Because arrangement for me, which I totally understand, you know, arrangement and production are inextricably linked. If you were going to arrange a song in rock and roll, you're probably talking more, and not definitely, none of these are absolutes, but you're probably talking more about verses and chorus lengths and moving things around and, you know, switching up the chord sequences, not necessarily rewriting the song, but moving things around. This is real production. Guitar production is a big, big deal. So what I think about is when I've got this chord sequence. By the way, these are the Sonus strings, which are frickin' amazing. So back to that chord sequence. So what I could do is I could tighten the voicings and think like a Hammond organ player. So get your guitar player you're working with or yourself and think about like how can you play those 4 chords without moving very far. So you could take this triad, which is a root 5/5, take a tight voicing, and then the A could either go, and the E. So that's like thinking really tight movement. It's really nice when you want to, because one of the problems with doing this, sounds nice, but it's all over the place. It doesn't keep my focus, especially when I'm working with, you know, in the world of EDM, and I've got tons and tons of synths and stuff going. I've got a very, very dense track. I might want to keep my voicings really tight. Think like a keyboard player. This is the advantage keyboard players have over guitarists, is that they can hold their hands down and move like 1 or 2 notes and completely revoice the chords. Guitar players, we have this tendency to think of root down. We tend to think of like, here's an E, here's a G, here's an A, here's a B minor, here's a C, here's a D, here's a minor. You know, we start thinking like this. And if you think that naively, which of course we all do at times, you're going to end up going like... which is kind of a cool sound, but heck, it's all over the place, you know, sort of sonically. You've got big, full, small and tight, you know. I'm not playing any harder. Listen to that. And see how the E just jumps out, so you've got this massive dynamic range. Now, if we keep it tight here, that's the same chord sequence. So I'm going to do two different ways of doing it. I've got a B minor, the E, sorry, the A, the E, or and you could do both. It almost tells a melodic story, doesn't it? Like almost like a dumb kind of jazz version, you know, where jazz will play chord melody. Like a chord melody. That's a chord melody of Here's That Rainy Day. Now, if I think about that in like just a rock and roll way, I could do. So I get them. You know, I've got I could do, basically make it a leading note. Does that make sense? And then the second half, I could go up to my A and my E here. So I'll get. So it implies that melody. It's all the same. Those chords 3 and 4 and both those chord sequences are exactly the same. But it keeps really tight voicings, and the reason why I like to do that, especially when doing acoustic parts, you know, is I can build from that. So what have I done? I've kept all of the chords on 3 strings. Every single one of those chords did not deviate between a D, a G, and a B. This is really good for production. What does that help me with? Well, now I can do. I can do like a voicing, like the B minor there, and then just on even just the E and the A, and I could go do a root, sorry, a third in the bass on the D, and then an A, or I could do root third. And a third. So you see the kind of voicings I'm getting? Let's just try it. So root third, third 5, root third. So that could be underneath. I've got one guitar going. The other one's going. That D was accidentally ringing out, which was kind of nice on the A. The point is like, I'm not getting clutter. That's one of the biggest problems I find with a lot of stuff I'm given to mix, is like the production is not, it's not focused. So maybe one guy is playing a B minor like this as an overdub, a D, and the other guy's going. Yeah, they sound different, they're stacked slightly differently, but they're all playing the same notes, just clustered slightly differently. They're not, I would rather have 3 guitar parts that create like a beautiful wall of guitar with less crossover, so I'm not hearing like the D string ringing several times in the same voicings. I'd much rather hear it independently. Whatever one you have in your hand. Oh, well, the best guitar is, or best microphone, yeah. So, looks like we're having a discussion about, with multiple guitar ranges, would you use stereo on mono tracks, out, or mono tracks, delays in the tracks? That's a good question. I'm a big fan when I'm panning to use mono, is to use mono delays and mono, you know, mono delays and mono reverbs. Or, if you, it depends on your DAW, but in Pro Tools you can obviously select your stereo reverb and stereo delay as a split mono. That's a really nice way of doing it, because then what you can do is you can send only to one side or only to the other. That's a quick and easy way. Create a stereo track, and then when you open up when you open up your reverb or delay, go to multi-mono. That way you'll be able to feed a guitar opposite itself or with itself. Both work. Sometimes I do opposite the guitar, so I'll take an acoustic guitar rhythm on the left and pan its reverb to the right, and then I'll take an acoustic guitar on the right and pan its reverb to the left. Sometimes I like that because it seems to push the guitars wider. Other times, if I want to focus an instrument in its place and keep it exactly on the left, for instance, I'll put its reverb and delay underneath it and then make the other side completely clean. So when that guitar comes in, it just seems to be like really unique and in its place. How do I feel about using an SM7B for acoustics? I think I've talked about this a few times before, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but I did a song a few years ago with Mark Ender mixing, and he called me up and said, I love your acoustic guitar sound. How did you do it? And I said, it's an SM57. And he went, I'm not surprised. Sort of meaning that, honestly, an SM57 or a good dynamic microphone is very, very underrated. Very underrated. Now, Michael in the mix said to me this morning that he gets asked a lot about, you know, guys that have home studios and only have one microphone. And I think that that's worth touching on again. If you only have one microphone, if it's a small diaphragm or a dynamic, then I would mic the body. But as he was pointing out to me, and this is something that's a really, really good point, is that most people have home setups. I don't know if you have home setups here. Do any of you guys have home setups? Oh, sorry, you have to go, Michael. I will have a marvelous day, my friend. Great to talk to you. Go and check out Michael's channel, especially if you're into doing beautiful kind of ambient music like he does. And you want to know more about FL Studio. So he was pointing out, and this is really, really obvious, is that most people have like a small setup like their little Audient ID4 or something like that, or an RME or a Focusrite or whatever is current now. They have one of those small interfaces, and maybe their electric guitars are direct. They're building all of the tracks using virtual instruments, and the only time they ever have to record anything organically is a vocal. Therefore, they get a large diaphragm condenser, even an inexpensive one at $200 or $300. And then when they want to record acoustic guitar, they're like, well, where would we put their large diaphragm acoustic guitar? So for me, the large diaphragm goes between the 12th and the 14th fret. If you've got an inexpensive $300 large diaphragm condenser, put it between the 12th and the 14th fret and pull it back, I don't know, maybe 6, 8 inches. For centimeters, that's probably about 20, 25 centimeters back. And make sure that the capsule is not pointing towards the sound hole. You're going to get a load of woof. Especially on inexpensive condensers, you'll get a lot of proximity and excessive. Apollos are great as well. So yeah, the VMS, the Slate VMS is great on it. So bring it back to about the 12th and 14th fret and make sure it's not pointing towards the super boomy area of the acoustic guitar. That's really what I would do. That is. And I'll do a video demonstrating that as well. I think we need to do some of this stuff as well. What is the best way to do recording acoustic guitars in a DO without real mics? That's an interesting one. I think that, you know, this has a DI, and I do use it. But for me, when I'm using DIs on acoustic, it's more for special effects. I will take the DI out and put it through an amp or an amp simulator. You know. I'll put it through an amp emulator and mess with it and use it as a way of getting a completely different kind of electric guitar sound. That's what I like about DIs. Most acoustic guitar DIs, even the ones with the little pickups in them, the little microphones, are always a compromise. It's just the way it is. Now, don't get me wrong. I've done many sessions where I have done DIs and I've used them and they've been on the record, but it's not my preferred way to present an acoustic guitar. As David is saying, DIs never sound good for acoustic guitars. We're just talking guitar production in general. I don't know, Alex, did you miss all the voicings and stuff we were talking about? So for me, for guitar production, it is about voicings. It is about like David says Pi Hull setup is my multi-effects processor. I don't know that. With the USB straight to the computer is not a bad way to start. What do you think? You know, you know what, you might have hit the nail on the head. I went to the Johnny Marr show a few days ago, and he has a second guitar player who covers everything. It's a really good question. And he was using a multi-effects processor, David Benderwald. Thank you, Dave. Thank you very much for the very generous amount of money there. I appreciate it. So what he had is he had a Yamaha SG-2000 with a hex pickup in it, and he was using that to create the acoustic, but he also had a multi-effects processor to do that as well. Plus, he was taking all of the the electric was triggering a bunch of guitar synths as well. You know, and they were obviously not guitar synths. I mean, they were guitar synths. They were the Boss ones, the Roland ones, I should say. However, everything seemed to be covered. It sounded like, especially for live, I think the multi-processors that have the emulations are absolutely fantastic. Can you imagine how easy it is to play an electric guitar and then just like hit a processing pedal and suddenly it's an acoustic? For live, it's actually probably going to sound better than trying to mic a live acoustic guitar. So I do think the multi-processors do an amazing job for that. And probably in most situations, in dense mixes, they're going to be okay. But if it's going to be like a, you know, something like that, and a guy or a girl singing over it, and it's just the acoustic on its own, that's where you're going to start hearing people go, oh, wait there, I can hear this processing. But I would imagine in a really, really dense mix, you know, David, I think that in a really dense mix, where it's like, you know, like a, and you've got like a, and something like that, super dense with an electric guitar playing along as well, and the bass, you know, it's not going to matter. I think your multi-processor is going to win. So it's probably going to win in most situations. The only times that anybody would ever point out and think that you're using some kind of processing like that is when it's the acoustic guitar sitting on its own. And somebody asked me earlier, sorry, about the guitar. This is an LL16. It's a Yamaha LL16. It's my main recording acoustic guitar. I've used it on many, many albums. So what have we done? We've talked about voicings and how important that is in guitar production. That, you know, on that B minor, D, A, E chord sequence I had yesterday, how, you know, I played the dumb chords, but also if I wanted to sort of like create some more tension and stuff like that, I would think more like a piano player, more like an organ player, and stack tight triads. So I don't know if you can see that. And if you're not a guitar player, it's okay. This is just about how you can communicate with your guitarists. If you're a producer and an engineer and you're working with guitar players, get them to think outside the box. And there can be the same, can be that same rhythm. So it's that same rhythm that I was playing. But I'm doing it with those three notes, and I'm staying on those three strings, which is just the D, G, and B. It's my favorite way of doing great tight guitar production. And then it allows me to do stuff either root fifth below it, or, as I love to do, root third. And then my bass guitar can just be doing. So what am I getting? I'm getting like the low end of my bass here, and then I'm getting voicings on that match underneath that with the guitar, and then I'm getting this mid-range kind of voicing here. Then, if I want, I can do the highline stuff that I was doing, which was, you know, like a, you know, in fact that works on both, on the B minor. those are out of the way of each other. So all of those voicings stack really nicely. Now, of course, you can get build up of notes where they cross over, but what you're trying to avoid is a lot of guitars hitting the same place. That's the reason why I'm not a big fan of using the capo as much as I am of using Nashville tuning. I feel like the thing with the capo is like it starts to get really pretty sounding, which is okay if that's what you're going for. But if you're going for a more rock and roll thing and you want it to be very focused, try stacking intervals. So what you're doing is you're stacking, like, imagine you're at a piano. For those of you who are piano players, it's easy to understand. You've got a root 3-5, and then you've got a 3-5, you know, a 3-5-1, and then a 5-3, you know, whatever. You understand what I'm saying. So you think about those voicings on guitars. So you've got like low, mid-range, high, maybe even higher above that. Think that way and you'll get, and it's not taking away, because a couple of people were saying, well, it's taken away from live, how would you play that live? Well, that's not what it's about, because live you might literally want to just play the block chords, you know, because they'll cover those voicings, and then your lead guitar players do it. You know, is doing those kind of things. So yeah, and also somebody mentioning there, was it Alex, about phase problems are less likely. Mark was saying that's another thing as well. Is like you want to you want to like make sure you're not creating like a lot of this mud. You know, a lot of this discussion about mud and things like that is like. There was somebody did a video recently talking about mud and like just pulling it out on your master bus and just EQing out 300-400 on your master bus. It's like that is like putting a band-aid on a gaping wound. You want to, it's not all about EQ, it's about production choices. It's not always about fixing it in the mix. So we EQ each part to fix the voicing. No, I mean the voicing, if you use the right voicing, the EQ is done for you. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, here's your E. There's a full sounding E. Here's another inversion. We all know these. So let's think about it. If I have a root 5 and another root, I could probably go, I could then do a third. So I've got. You know, so if I build melody around these areas, so maybe this is what holds down the low end. And I could do... And then I... If I stack all that together, I've got one guitar part that is not fighting with all the different areas. It's really important to think that way. That's how you do good guitar production. You're getting voicing. So otherwise, if you do a lot of like open E and this is an E with that ringing here, you know, it's nice, but you're going to end up with a huge build-up of low mids and gunk and mud that you're going to end up EQing out. However, if you choose the voicings so they stack really beautifully, I want you all to think about this kind of stuff. If you choose those voicings in the same way you would on a piano, and remember, the piano has the inability to play the same note twice. That's what's so beautiful about a piano. You can't play, you know, a middle C 5 times like you can with a guitar. Here's a middle C. You know what I mean? So if I go, that's all middle C. So if I go voicing, you know, I'm going to get a massive build-up of that note over and over again. And it's going to be like this, and I'm going, oh, and I'm going to try to find some subtractive EQ to remove that. Well, how about you just you do voicings that work better? So if you've got a C that's maybe like with the G on the top, like a... Go to the next inversion, maybe miss out that middle C, maybe use the open G again. Just be mindful of it. Or just the 2 here. So, how about that? No top G on it. And then the second one, the G and the E here. And then here. You see what I mean? We're starting to build stuff now. You are going to get you're going to get like a build up of maybe 1 or 2 extra notes, but think about it logically. You know, how would you build those so they sound fantastically? See, look, Tony Yamaha and Alexei there are talking about Brian May, Mercury and Brian May solos. Exactly. These are very, very well designed, incredibly structured parts. So, you know, it's all stacked to work together, but it doesn't have to be as complicated as it maybe sounds. It's really just about a case of finding voicings. Now, in heavy rock, you look at guys like Bob Marlette. I was working with him yesterday, and it's like he'll have a chord sequence where it's like, you know, just do 2 chords, for instance. Then he's finding the voicing on a baritone, or as I would do with the bass underneath. So maybe he wants to bring out the third. It's a B major and an A major. We've got it here. So you could do, you know, but do that an octave lower, which would be an E flat and a D flat. Find that on a baritone. Then you stick the bass guitar is playing the low B and low A, and suddenly you've got a stack. You've got a low B, a low A, you've then got a low E flat and a low D flat for the major third on the baritone. Then you've got a root 5 on the guitar. So you've now got this big fat chord. You've got this piano chord. You've got this low note on the left hand. You've got a third or a 5, depending on what you want to put in, and then a root 5 on the top. Suddenly you've got like this 5-note chord that is playing, you know, depending on whether you're adding another root or another third. It could be even a 6th note if it was on a guitar. Now you've got a nice stacked guitar chord, and you don't have a ton of like crossover with one note being sticking its head out being like whoa, and you're sitting there trying to pull out all of the EQ. This is good guitar production. Is that all making sense? What sorts of mics do you prefer? Tom Petty, REM, Rickenbacker and Vox kind of tones. So 50, I think it's always a combination of 57s. Remember that if you look at the Beatles recording book, I don't know if it's very expensive now. I think Anita, you as a piano player would understand what we're talking about. Think about piano chords and think about how you stack, how you're forced to stack a piano chord maybe over 2 hands. And now think about that, how can you emulate that idea on guitar production? Thank you ever so much, David, I really appreciate it. So going back to that, now the reason why I mentioned the Beatles recording manual is because you'll notice a lot of their stuff was recorded using, you know, the AKG mic, the very famous AKG, the D19C, which is this little beauty here, which is basically AKG's equivalent to the now 57. It wasn't a 57 in those days, it didn't exist in the early 60s, but it's a dynamic microphone. So that dynamic microphone, you can use a 57 in the place of it for those kind of voicings. But what you're talking about Tom Petty, basically you're talking very Beatles tones. Everything you were talking about is very Beatley. So then what I would do is I would take a small diaphragm condenser if you have one as well. Obviously it might not survive massively high SPLs, but remember the Beatles were using KM53s, 54s and 56s, which are tube small diaphragm Neumanns. Now you probably don't have those in your arsenal unless you have a lot of money to spend on gear. So basically I would say just use a small diaphragm condenser and blend it. So have like a 57 and then have double the guitar with a small diaphragm condenser, maybe even a different part, and that will separate it. If you look at that Beatles recording book, they would sometimes have the same amp, and one would be mic'd with a 57 and one would be mic'd with a D19, the other one would be mic'd with a KM54 or a 53 or a 56, one of those models depending on the capsule. And that would separate. No, I'm not sick. I'm drinking too much coffee here, as per usual. So that would separate the amps out. That would make the amps be. That would give them different characteristic, different tonal characteristic. Do I use an M160 on guitars? I have done. My M160 is broken at the moment, unfortunately, but I have done, and it is fantastic. Do I use baritone guitars? No, I have never bought one. I need to buy one. I want a baritone. So I think it's really, really important with us to sort of like get this idea of that model of AKG is no longer available. It's called a D19. Too much coffee, no such thing, yeah. The LCT 140 and 340 are very similar. Obviously, well, how did Rory Gallagher have that sound? I think it was Marshalls and very heavy strings. He used heavy strings. He didn't use wimpy strings, so we got a lot more tone out of it. These guitar tracks aren't applicable for single fat guitar tricks. It's more about how you're voicing. I mean, if you're talking about recording instead of production ideas, I think let me pause on the LCT. So the 140 and the 340 are very similar. The 340 is just a little bit more expensive. To be honest, I end up using the 140 on acoustic guitars because it doesn't have quite the same low end, and I actually like that. So I use the cheaper one on acoustic guitars because I don't get an additional amount of low end. Can you tell us who wrote that Beatles book, the Beatles recording? It's a really expensive one. I've had it for years since it came out. It's sitting in there. It's called Beatles Recording. It's the huge fat book. It was written by two guys who got together. I believe it's out of print. Yeah, and definitely, yeah, and his fingers, the fact that he was able to play those heavy strings. That's the explanation. The LCT 140, that was the explanation. Doesn't have quite the same low end as 340s. It's not as fat sounding, so I actually prefer it on acoustic guitars because it doesn't give me a huge amount of low end. It's Brian Kehoe and Kevin Ryan. To be honest, last time I looked, this was insanely expensive on Amazon, like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Be careful with that, please.
Yes.
Try not to. So yeah, it's called Recording the Beatles. It's a very expensive book. I like ribbons on guitars. It's usually when I've got a very, very brittle guitar sound and I'm trying to control it. When I was doing recording Joe Perry's guitars, I would use the 122V, the 122V is this phenomenal mic that has a really good tube sound. It's interesting because when I was recording it, they wouldn't give me a deal on buying one, so I never bought one. You know, and we ended up doing a Mix magazine cover shoot, and I talked about it and all the other kind of stuff, and I was on the cover talking about all the gear we used, but couldn't get them to give me any kind of deal on it, so I don't have one. Because just like the rest of us, I'm not flushed with millions of dollars that I can buy every microphone I've ever wanted. I have to choose what I want, so I'm not a fan of thick strings. I tune way down to B, and 11 to 50 works fine for me, no issues. I mean, I think 11 to 50 is considered thick for most people, so it sounds like you're using pretty heavy strings. Yes, Tony says put the Beatles book back very carefully in the Ark of the Covenant. Yeah, it's ridiculously expensive. Yeah, $700 on Amazon. Yeah, it's incredible. Reamp. I mean, if I was to choose a reamp, I'd probably go with the radial. I don't do as much reamping. If I am reamping, I tend to print DIs to use emulations and simulations. But if I print the amp tone that I want in the first place. But if I was to do reamping, I would probably use the radial one. Rory Gallagher was only an AC30. Okay, cool. I always thought he used the Marshall as well, but 8 to 48s. Well, that's a big change. 10 to 46s. Yeah, 11s are considered heavy, but definitely if he's tuning down to a low B, then obviously it's not that heavy, you know. Okay, here's a really good question from Gavin. Different guitars for different parts? Yes. So, really good question and a great thing to talk about. So, what do I love about this guitar? I love this guitar because it has humbuckers and it's really super slinky, so I can play fast on it. But I also really good for just, if I want to do a heavy guitar chord. So it's really nice for all of that kind of stuff. Now, it is pretty versatile. I can change the guitar sound quite dramatically by pulling this up. However, if I want to get adventurous, I will probably use like a guitar with a single coil pickup in it, because even coil taps don't necessarily sound quite as good as having the real thing. Now, why would I use different ones? Well, obviously with humbuckers, you've got this huge fat... You know, you've got this huge kind of like fat, spongy kind of sound. And if I wanted to have something really super bright over there, I could go to, you know, a single coil pickup and, you know, just kind of play harsh over it, which would be, of course, a Telecaster or a Strat-like guitar. That for me is typically, well, I have a few different things that I use. Obviously, with the Pacifica, can we fix this? I can't remember. Yes, it's fixed. So that for me typically is like, this has a P100. Which is actually quite creamy, but it's basically like a P90, but it's Seymour Duncan's one, and I really, really love that for that. This is also a humbucker guitar, but because it's a bolt-on neck, I feel like I get the best of both worlds. I'm a big fan of bolt-on neck humbuckers. Still have a... I don't know if it translates over of YouTube, but it still has a little kind of a little brightness to it. So I'm now on the back pickup. So it's humbucker back pickup, but I have a little bit of bite because it's a bolt-on neck. This is just a little bit more bite than you were getting out of the Rev Star, which is more Les Paul-like. So to answer your question, I like to move between guitars to reinforce sounds. So sometimes, like when we're talking about stacking all these different sounds, sometimes it's good to just to stay on one guitar if you're trying to make a big guitar sound. But otherwise, I like to change guitars to reinforce like the punch. So maybe for that mid-rangey one, I would, and sometimes this is where I'll double. I'll take an acoustic guitar and electric and play the same part. And somebody, when they were asking me about using a DI, on that mid-rangey kind of like thing, a DI'd acoustic blends really well because it has a solidity to it. You know, so Tony Yamaha, if that's your real last name, you don't need to change it. Acoustic guitars too, I'm not sure what the question is. I mean, all of the voice things apply for acoustic and electric. Same guitar, different amps is actually not a bad idea. So it's a really, really good question mark. A same guitar and different amps works really well, or different emulations. The reason for that is intonation. Because you can tune your guitar absolutely perfectly in tune. And where's Matt, by the way? We haven't done any giveaways yet. Can you text him?
Yes.
He just said no giveaway today. No, there is giveaways, but okay. He's texting me. I don't know if he noticed I was on a live stream. So, are you there, Matt? Do I ever use stereo imager on mixers? I did actually answer that one, Matthew. You must have missed it. No, I don't. I only use that on synths and pads and stuff if I really need something to try and get them out of the way in the middle. I never put it on the full mix, ever. I don't like what it does to the phase, and I try to stay away from MS techniques, and I've answered that in a couple of different ways. I don't like messing with the polarity in the phase. You know, thank you ever so much. He's here, he says he's here. Matt says he's here. Yes, I'm here. Okay, Tony says, Matt, where are you? All right, let's do a giveaway. We're going to do, so talking of rock guitars, we're going to do a big one, Matt. Let's do a big one. Let's do something big. What should we do? You know, I think the best, I think the two best guitar courses we've done, two of the best, not two best, but two of the best, is Galacticon, because Brendan Small is a genius with layering harmony parts and all of the stuff we're talking about. So let's do the Galacticon, which is Auric Wild mixing Brendan Small's Galacticon. Let's do that with, so a double whammy with Bob Marlette's course, which is, he's amazing at stacking and making big fat guitars. So, two courses, you're going to win two. Yes to iTunes, Kip. So basically it's going to be, and you can get the, I'll do a giveaway, guitar giveaway another day. Okay, so the question is, all right, well, you're talking about guitars. What is your, what's your favorite guitar? What is your favorite guitar? I actually want to know what your favorite guitar is. What is your favorite guitar? Did you do anything interesting guitar-wise with Black Veil Brides? No, it was all Kempers. Everything was Kempers. They were using their studio tones through a Kemper. So whatever they were recording with, they were using live, which I think was very smart. Well, Kip, you can still enter to win the other course. So, what is your favorite guitar? A Strat. No horses for courses, it's all Telecasters. Yamaha, Epiphone Casino. I love, and if you don't own a guitar and you just like the sound of one, you can tell me that. You don't have to be a guitar owner. Ibanez, Strat, Gibsons, Les Paul, Jagmaster, nice. Oh, Tokai. I love Tokai guitars. They were amazing. Really amazing. So, more Gibsons, some Telecasters. Lakewoods. Jacksons. Custom left-handed. Gibson Les Paul. And if you haven't liked and shared, please like and share. That would be absolutely amazing. Because that's the way we're told, we're being able to we tell people that we're online. Wow, there's 328 of you watching. Thank you ever so much. That's really marvelous. So please like and share. All right, Matt, are you going to choose a winner? Do we have a winner? Do we have a winner? Homemade Telly, SG, 67 Strat, Gretsch, Valley Arts, ESP, Guild. I love Guild stuff. Favorite guitars are Charvels, Guthrie Gubbs. I never tried those. I'd like to try them. Yesterday I was using a John 5 Telly, which I thought was fantastic. Anything Rickenbacker, GLLs, those are great. Pedro Mora one. Wow. So Pedro, what was your guitar? AC. I haven't tried the NT5, so Vigo. So I don't want to have an opinion on something I've not tried, but I do like Rode stuff. And we have Rode clip-on microphones that we use for recordings, for interviews and things like that, and they're fantastic. And I had a really good time with the NT1. So it's done at random by Matt. I don't do it. He picks it at random. So oh wow, 97 Jeff Beck Strat. That's great. Oh, I don't know how much John 5's Telly is, but it is really, really good. All right, well, I have to go shortly. I actually have to go and make music. I have to go to Harmony today. I just got hit up by that, so... Because I didn't do the full week that we were supposed to do, so now they're pumping it on. So I'll call the guys and let them know. And I want to do vocals with Jack this evening. Okay. So if he's down for that. Gretsch, if you're asking us, play but my favourite sound. I want to try an NT1. Parker to return, TNT, anything made in the US. Can't believe I won. Oh, congratulations. And what was your, Pedro, what was your guitar? What did you choose? I'd love to do pickups. Yeah, well, that's a tough one because there's a lot of people who won't understand the subtleties of the pickups, but I understand what you mean, Alex. That's a good question. For me, I'll tell you, is Matt blindfolded? That's a good question. What was I going to say? Pickups for me is a Jeff Beck in the bridge and a jazz in the neck. That was you know, that was always my favorite. Panning, front to back imaging. Yeah, for me, I would start with these basic ideas of like verses, pretty mono, sometimes like 20 or as much as 50%. Then choruses go full left and full right. In rock in particular, that works every time. It gives us this huge stereo imagery. It makes things feel absolutely massive. It's really, really good. Yeah, we're going to do more stuff with Auric. Well, there's actually quite a few Auric courses, so check them all out. Yeah, that was Martin. Yeah, that was the telecast that Jeff Beck gave to Jimmy Page. Yeah, there's some good questions here on the pickups. Seagull Acoustics, Seagull make great acoustics. All right, we're going to do, I have to go in a few minutes, so we're going to do one more giveaway. The same thing. I can't do pickups because that's not fair, because I think a lot of people, especially beginners, aren't going to know the subtle differences of pickups. So, you know, I think that's a little, it's a little esoteric. Even though it's not esoteric for guitar players, I think for producers and engineers and mixers that watch this, it would be unfair to tell them, to ask what their favorite pickup is. Yes, the Seymour Duncan JBs are the Jeff Becks, yes. Okay, so, great. So, let's do one last question to win these two incredible courses. Please, as ever, like and share. I'd really, really appreciate it if you liked and shared the video. That would be absolutely amazing. And my question is, what is your favorite amp to record? And it can be an emulation as well. It doesn't have to be an actual physical amp, because many of you are just, we're on doing favorite amps, Lawrence. Many of you just plug into the front of your interfaces and open different emulations. Now, sometimes they don't have the actual amp manufacturer allowing them to use the name. So you could be general if you want to say something general. Have I played an Epiphone? Oh, definitely, yeah. So, what is your favorite amp to record? And that could be, oh, AC15, that's a good one. AC20, Kempers, yeah, it could be Kempers, it could be Axe Effects. In fact, to be honest, if you want to say bias, I'm down with that. If you want to tell me it's the new PRS from Waves, I'm down with that. Let me know. JC50, Orange, Marshalls, DSL 100, Soldanos. Rory played a Marshall half stack. After Taste, I saw Rory, and yes, he used an AC30 with a top boost. Cool. So he started with the Marshall half stack. It's probably a lot of that stuff. Oh, you saw him with Taste. That's amazing. At Wall Civic. Oh, he was so amazing. Fender Bassmans, Guitar Rig. Paul Lucas. Yay! What did Paul? Paul, what did you choose? Congratulations, Paul. What did you choose? Can't find Paul Lucas. Paul, what did you choose? What was your favorite amp to record or emulation? Paul, what amp did you choose? PV Bandit. I love PV Bandits. I used to have a Classic 65 with the what was it called? STX software in it or something in it, and it was absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. I always thought Brian May was using the AC30 from when he was a kid in the late 60s and early 70s. I'm sure, you know, he would have been influenced by Rory as well. Everybody was. We're all influenced by Rory Gallagher. Such a phenomenal guitarist. I didn't know he would have got it from Rory if Rory didn't play it till after Taste. But hey, maybe he did. Or maybe it reinforced. So Paul, what did you choose? A JC120. Oh, nice. That's a good choice. I love that amp. Okay, well, unfortunately, I have to go very shortly. So, can we like and share to let the lovely YouTube community know that we're here and about? Thank you ever so much for everybody watching. I see we have 189 likes and 300 plus people. Can you please like it? This would be absolutely amazing. I'd really appreciate it. thanks ever so much for everybody that's been here today. We'll do another one on Thursday and we'll get even more in depth. I think we're going to have some fun. I think I might pull out some different guitars and try some different fun things and really kind of get into it. That would be phenomenal. So, have a marvelous time recording and mixing. Please like and share. Matt, do we have time for one more giveaway before we go? Do 3 giveaways because we always do 3. Should we do it? One more giveaway if you can like and share. We've done amps, we've done guitars. We've done guitar players as well. We did that in a previous one. We did that in a previous one and we did drummers. You know what? I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna do it again even though I know a lot of you already told me. Who is your favorite guitar player for one last giveaway? Because we always do 3. Who is your favorite guitar player? And you know who mine. One more giveaway, says Matt. One more giveaway, one more giveaway. All right, who's your favorite guitar player? I want to know, who's the favorite guitar player? Pedals is a good one, but we'll do that another time. We've done strings as well. Brian May, Robert Plant, good jobs. Paul Gilbert, Paul's phenomenal. Blackmore. Tony, who's your favorite guitar player? We're rounding up. Who's to win the course? Who is your favorite guitar player? Hendrix, great one. Jason Becker, great one. Clapton. Yay! That was fun. Congrats, Martin. Martin, what was your favorite guitar player? Who is your favorite guitar player? Thank you for saying Warren Hewitt. That's very generous of you. Who's your favorite guitar player? Who is it? Thanks, everybody. Martin, who was your favorite guitar player? Is that yeah, this one's, I think it was $500 or $600. I have 4, and 2 of them cost me $200. In fact, this one over here was $200 on eBay. This one is like a super over-the-top rock guitar, and I bought it on eBay for $200, and Christian Vey came in and sorted out the action. I wanted a shredding guitar, so this was like my first real shredding guitar. I've never had one before. All right, thank you ever so much. What kind is it? It is called, yeah, 200 bucks. It's called a Yamaha 921, Pacifica 921. I can shred on any guitar, but I wanted something that was specifically with a tremolo, because this is the first guitar I've ever owned with a Floyd Rose. I've got the trem arm off at the moment, but it's the first guitar I'd ever owned with one, and I wanted something that, like, if I want to do a shred video, you know, like a... Alex, I mean, just lots of practice, you know. I think that Paul Gilbert riff is really good practice, and Paul does that thing where he goes, it's on the B string, 1, 2, 3. So it's... So start with that. Start with that riff and practice it. Just down, up, down, up. So just practice that riff over and over and over again. It's a really good, simple articulation one, Alex. I would try that a lot. Paul is incredible. He's a great, yeah, 921. It's yeah, you can, not I can shred on any guitar, you can shred on any guitar. It's just about, oh, thank you ever so much. It's just about, this has a super slinky neck, this 921. It's super thin. Can you see how slinky it is? It's like very, very slinky. It's got a flat fretboard with super wide frets, very low action, and most importantly, the trem. So if I want to do any kind of like dive bombing stuff, I've got it. The other guitars that I have don't have locking machine heads. I don't have locking nuts and stuff like that, so they don't really, you know. Yeah. The Spider's good too. Yeah, the Spider's a good thing as well. All right, have a marvelous time recording and mixing. If you haven't already, please hit that like button. There's 300 plus of you watching. Please hit that like button. That would be most amazing. I'm looking at it here. Please hit that like button. Thank you ever so much for watching. You all rock. Yay! There you all are. A little bit of a time delay. And have a marvelous time recording and mixing. And I'll speak to you all again very, very soon. Thank you.